Thank you all for attending today's lecture with Tony Allgeier entitled My Design Hustle. I remember a young Tony always being creative and making things as a kid. He used to sew puppets and dolls, along with making wooden models of cabins and houses. His creativity did not stop at just making. He would practice ballet in the dining room and his violin and cello in the living room of our parents' house in Erie, Pennsylvania. Since graduating from La Roche University with his BS in Interior Design and a minor in Visual Communications in 2010, he has continued to pursue many types of creative endeavors in much the same extensive and wide-ranging way. He has worked as an interior designer at a furniture dealership called Workspace, as an independent contractor for several designers throughout Western PA and West Virginia, and as a product representative for Dan Binford and Associates. Tony currently works as an independent designer in Pittsburgh, PA. Recently, he created, edited, and hosted his own video series on furniture for the Westmoreland Museum of American Art called For the Love of Furniture. Probably his greatest passion is in his pursuit of drag as Alora Chateaux. Tony, aka Alora, performs in shows throughout the US, including Pittsburgh, New York City, Chicago, and LA. He creates his own costumes, wigs, accessories, styles, and props. Alora has been hired as a corporate motivational speaker throughout the pandemic to uplift the masses during these difficult times, appearing on corporate Zoom events and meetings, both locally and internationally. Her Facebook Live drag bingo nights were very popular throughout the pandemic shutdown, raising over $7,500 for charity. Most recently, both Tony and Alora were featured on HGTV's Design Star Next Gen, now streaming on Discovery Plus, in which he showcased his design talents, abilities, and unique style. I am sure that many of you have questions for Tony, so please feel free to put those questions into the chat, or you can talk to Emma at the end and she can help with that. Then we'll have the Q&A session at the end. I'm very proud to welcome Tony to speak with the RIT College of Art and Design community today.
Yay, thank you so much. It's so weird, other people talking about me. I love talking about myself, which is, easy enough to do, but when other people are saying stuff about me, it's the weirdest thing. So thank you so much. So I'm just gonna go through a lot of what Joey just said. Should I call you Mr. Allgeier? That's the weirdest. I was thinking about that earlier today. I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to call you, but I think I'm also one of the only people that still calls you Joey instead of Joe.
Joey's fine. I haven't been Mr. Allgeier since I taught in high school, so no, Joey's good.
Oh, that's cute. So I'm Joey's brother. Obviously, I'm his younger brother. Clearly, thank you very much. But I'm just going to go through. I'm basically an enigma in the design world and design community. So I'm going to go through just some of the different things that I've worked on throughout my design career, whenever I started after graduating and all of that sort of stuff, into present day. So as we go through, I've done a lot of random things, especially after making this little presentation. I was like, wow, I guess I have done a lot. This is kind of crazy, but we're gonna go through that. I'm gonna try and go through it as quickly as I can. And if you have any questions at the end, I love questions. Any question, whether it's anything, like I don't get offended by anything. I always love to tell people that because I just don't get offended by anything. So I also love like children's questions because they have no inhibitions and they don't question their questions. They just question it. So be questioning. So so I'm going to share my screen really quick. Let's see, can I do this? Share that. Can you see my screen? Are you good? Okay, cool. I put this photo first because I'm pretty much wearing that same exact shirt. I didn't even realize. but my arms looked really good in that photo, so I was very excited about this photo. So my design hustle, this is a more recent photo. You can see from those gray hairs because it has been a stressful year to say the least, but a lot of my design started when I went to La Roche. It was a college when I went there. Now it's converted to a university. Most of the teachers are like, it was just paperwork. It really means nothing, but it changed the name of the school. So it sounds better now that I went to La Roche University instead of college. So it was a great college to go to. Originally, I had applied to a couple of other colleges. And when I was a junior in high school, my thought process, I knew I wanted to go for interior design. And the only school that I really knew that was accredited for interior design was Kent State University. So in my head, all through junior year of high school, I thought Kent was the place for me. Then I toured there and I realized it was not. It was just so big. I already felt like I was just a number. And then my dad actually Googled back when Google was just a thing, pretty much back then. He Googled, accredited design schools in Pennsylvania, and La Roche was the first one to pop up. So we went there and I toured. I liked it, but I didn't like how small of a campus it was. It pretty much, the school overall has about 2,000 students. It's really not too huge. So my freshman year, I was like, this is just so tiny. And everyone knows me, which is really great. But in some aspects, I was like, I'd rather not everybody know me. Anyways, La Roche was by far the best choice for me because I got a great education for interior design and have a minor in visual communications. But also because it was a smaller school, I was able to have my hand in a lot of everything. I was an RA for 3 years. I did a lot of ballet classes, like actually taking ballet classes, which I had never done in grade school or high school. But because they did have a smaller ballet and dance program, and the director loved me, and I helped him out with a couple of other things, like playing my violin for some of their productions and things like that. And he knew that I just had a drive for dance. He actually let me start taking classes, and I learned a ton of things. And I was just very, very involved in a lot of the La Roche community, which was really great and prepared me a lot for my career after graduation. So I graduated. The initial time when the market was really bad was like 2008, 2009. I graduated in 2010 when the design markets were coming back, but jobs were still a little slim, even still. So my first job was one of my first jobs was at Skyline Design. I had a job previous to this, but it was such a horrible experience. I didn't realize how horrible it was until I got my job at Skyline Design. That job, I learned so much that I shouldn't have needed to know. I was doing shipping and receiving. I was working as the showroom manager. I was basically reorganizing all of her files that I worked for. It was a great experience in the fact that I learned how to see a business fail and what not to do and how not to treat employers, because it was a very bad experience, to say the least. So my first job that was a great experience was Skyline Design. I went there and realized that someone else was doing shipping and receiving. Someone else was doing taxes. Someone else was like organizing and doing a lot of other things. And I was there as a designer, which was really, really cool. So Skyline Designs, they did and still do. I still work with them as an independent designer too. A lot of backsplashes, floors, walls, some ceilings as well, primarily with tile. and a little bit more high-end tile as well. So it was a really great job, a really cool experience to be able to work on a lot of very different projects all throughout the Pittsburgh region, for the most part, Pittsburgh. And I got to do a lot of crossover as well. Ever since I was in college, I always loved doing anything that really came my way. So sometimes independent designers, you know, needed a floor plan. I've worked for designers throughout the years who were not educated, do not have a degree in interior design and just have a natural flair for actual design. There's huge debates back and forth whether or not designers need for me, I would not have been hired by many of the people without a design degree, and especially commercially. Residentially, more so, you can get away with not having a degree, but having that degree really, it helped profoundly. The designers that I have worked for who have not gotten a degree for interior design, they're still amazing and very, very talented and very visually incredible, but there always seems to be a little lacking of confidence because they don't have that degree, and parts and pieces such as doing like CAD work and 3D modeling, or just drawing and rendering, and like basic skills that really, really help when you're in front of a client to just do things very quickly and get the idea across so that you can actually commit to that project. But I still work for them because I will take that money. I am a hustler at the end of the day, so it does not matter. So my next job after working at Tile & Designs was for Workscape, which Workscape is a furniture dealership in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, primarily working on their biggest line that they sell is Knoll furniture, mainly commercially for Knoll. There is the Knoll Studio, if any of you are familiar with that, which is more of, you know, the classic Bertoya chairs and just all the classic Knoll, Florence Knoll, I believe was her first name. I can't even remember now, but all of the classic pieces, which are very expensive, but also Knoll does a lot with millworking and office furniture, systems furniture. So I got to work a lot on the commercial end of furniture and systems, which was really, really cool. And I was also a dirt designer, which dirt still is a thing. They've advanced a lot since I worked for them. They were kind of the top of the line demountable wall partitions, which was very, very technical. Even just a solid glass wall was still very technical, but a lot of the projects that I got to work on, depending on the budget's always a thing when it comes to design, but because the wall systems were very expensive, especially more segments that you put into them, they can get really pricey. So I did get to work on so many different types of projects, so many different types of buildings downtown in Pittsburgh, primarily Pittsburgh, and I did do some at like Penn State University and some of the surrounding areas in Pennsylvania. But it was a really, really cool, very unique project. I'm a very visual person and I like creating things. So after a while, some of these projects for me, I just wanted to experience more and do more. And at some points in time, I did feel a little stifled working there, but I did also really, really love the education that I was getting from working for a dealership, especially. And I even was able to incorporate some of the knowledge of the systems furniture and create things, systems furniture out of dirt walls, which was what this project was for our showroom. I even got to work on some walls at, where was this? This is the UPMC, the Steel Tower downtown in Pittsburgh. If any of you are, if I didn't live in Pittsburgh, I wouldn't be familiar with it. So it's a really cool building. It used to actually be the tallest flat roof skyscraper ever. That was kind of its claim to fame. I don't believe it is anymore, but it used to be. So at one point in time it was. So I just got to work on a lot of different types of projects and also utilizing a lot of my skills as from my knowledge of visual communications from my minor, which has helped me immensely over the years. This was a weird but fun project. This was probably one of my first projects that I had to do, and I had to do it after a designer had already worked on it. I kind of took their job after they left Workscape. So I came in and had to do this really, really quickly. And I was like, I don't know what this is. But it was a little kiosk for a VA project in Pittsburgh for a children's area, which was really fun. So after that, I started to do a lot more freelance work and decided to just take the jump and a huge leap for me to go independently and work for other designers. So working for other independent designers. And the first woman that I started to work for was Becky Gerald, and she's a local designer in Pittsburgh, but her work is incredible. And I got to work with her especially, mainly because she had a huge project. I can't remember the first project that I worked on with her, but she needed help, she needed assistance, she needed it now, and it was really good money. It was very stressful, but a ton of work and a ton of knowledge and one-on-one personal communication with a designer who has been in the industry for forever. So I learned a ton from her. And this was actually one of our last projects together that we worked on, and I still actually do work for her from time to time. But this was a project we had to create this. I actually had to create this floor plan based off of an 8.5 by 11 PDF, which was very difficult because, as you can see, all the walls radiate from the center portion. There is a huge curve. I had to create, this was like I loved this project, even though it was so stressful, because I had to create this drawing package and source everything, all while being in Pittsburgh, and this building is in Tucson, Arizona. So we had a month to create this floor plan, create a furniture package, a design package, source all of our manufacturers in Tucson and our installers in Tucson without ever meeting them. So we had a month to do that. And then the next month we had to fly week. Becky and I would basically cross each other in the air. And we would dual project manage this project. So within a 2-month span, we had to fully furnish, fully paint a lot of areas. We did a lot of wallpaper, tiling, carpeting, doing all of that in no time. But it was a really cool experience. I actually got to place a Chihuly glass sculpture, which was fascinating because this is a very high-end residential project, and they have pretty much an unlimited budget. They own everything. They probably have as much money as Oprah, I would imagine, because they've got a lot. So our first plane flight out there was actually on a private jet that they didn't own. But at one of their resorts that they own, they have a private jet runway, which is very convenient for them. So whenever the artwork actually came in, because the client went somewhere, purchased a bunch of artwork, and then just had it shipped directly to this house. So when we were unpackaging it, a lot of it was the first time we were seeing it. But it was also fascinating because I'm just a little country boy from Erie, Pennsylvania, and now like working on this project, working one-on-one with these very expensive pieces of art that this client basically just bought one day. And when they actually came to the house, once we were all done, they forgot what they bought, which for me, that baffles me because I'm like, holy bejesus, we just positioned this like $30,000 sculpture in the corner that's small and on a pedestal, and you didn't even remember that you bought that. I hope one day I have that much money. That would be lovely. But it was such a great project because it was so fast. It was great to be able to project manage it. And it was just exhilarating too, because each week I was flying out to Tucson, flying back to Pittsburgh. It was during Halloween, and each weekend I would be back. A ton of friends would want to go out and like do things. And I just remember falling asleep on a lot of friends' couches at times because we would just be sitting, hanging out, and I would just be like, this is ridiculous. But it was a great project to be a part of. And the weather is incredible in Tucson. So also, again, throughout this time frame, I was also contracted by other designers as well. So some of the designers Becky has worked with in the past, and as an independent designer, she encouraged it, but also too, because primarily Becky was my main employer at the time, who I was working for. So it gets a little tricky as an independent designer. And if you're working under other independent designers for their projects, sometimes you do have to really manage your time and be able to focus on particular projects. So it's very much time management and dealing with different types of designers and architects, which is really exciting because you get to work one-on-one with people who have been in the industry for years, and work on some pretty impressive projects that aren't specifically vetted through more of the commercial one-off type of projects. They're a little bit more very detail oriented. So some of these renderings are, the top renderings are ones that I did for a designer who she needed like very crisp, her favorite word is minutia. Doing drawing packages for her was always fun because I would always laugh at her because she was just the funniest person. In my opinion, she was the funniest person ever. She didn't think she was funny, but she was hilarious. And she would be down to like, the 16th of an inch for cabinetry that she's not even like, we're going to have it built by a cabinetry maker. So they would do that. Anyways, she was very, very detail oriented, which I very much appreciated. But I was also contracted out by different architects to do different floor plan renderings and to create structures through SketchUp really simply, very quickly, just so that they could then take that over and showcase their clients to sell the project. So it all varies on, how much the designer is willing to pay you versus how much time they are allotting to, they need this tomorrow and this is how much time they can pay you for, or they need it to look like this and they'll more so sometimes ask how long would it take for you to do that. So it's a lot of plug and play with a lot of that. I also do a lot of upholstery and sewing of both residential and commercial projects, again, being contracted out by different designers, as well as different companies directly will contact me, or sometimes in a resident or a residential project. So an end user client sometimes contacts me and hears about me throughout the world of design. So I've gotten a chance to do a lot of random things, which for me, I love upholstery. I love fabric. I love the ability of fabric and what it can do. and I just love to sew. I've always loved to sew. So this project, I'm not super proud of the painting that I did because they wanted me to do a painting and I was like, okay, I guess. And they wanted it to look like that. They don't have it up in their house anymore. I'm still friends with them, but I had to do that painting. And I was also contracted out to do all of the pillows that are not displayed correctly on that couch there, but that was the only photo that I found in my my little thing of photos that I've had. So after a while of working independently for a couple of years, I loved it, but things were slowing down a little bit. A lot of other designers weren't getting as many projects. So I needed something else. I loved the kind of fluidity of being an independent designer. So I wanted to see what other things I could get into. So there was one day where I was meeting with a product rep for a project that we had. And it was actually at Becky's office. And so there was another designer there as well. So it was the three of us and then Susan, who is the product rep. And she was taking us all, after she gave her presentation, she was going to take us all out to lunch. And all the other designers went to the restaurant and I helped Susan with her bags. And as I walked to her van, her rep van, we were just talking, and we had known each other forever, but not super personal on a personal level, but we had known of each other from my time at Workscape, from when I was in school and all of that sort of stuff. So she was talking to me and she was like, yeah, you know, I'm really looking to hire somebody just to help me organize because I'm moving storage units. And I was like, oh, I love money. I love organization, and I would love to help you move. So I actually helped her move storage units. And at that time, Carnegie Fabrics, they were coming out with their new binder update. So she actually, after a while of helping her move things, then she was like, hey, you know the design industry, you know design libraries. Do you want to help me just update a bunch of libraries because I need to switch out all of these binders? And I was like, sure, that'd be awesome. So we did that for a while. And then eventually I don't even know how it started, but somehow I started to do presentations. And then I started to just come on, basically I went with her to different presentations. She started to realize that I know everyone in the industry because I either went to school with them or saw them at design events or was on like the ASID board or things like that throughout my time. So eventually Dan Binford, who is the owner of the company, he's out of Cincinnati, Ohio. And Susan is the rep in Western PA and West Virginia. So after a while, Dan was like, hey, if you want to work for us, like part-time, that's kind of the way he always states things whenever he hires someone new is, if you want to start like working for us and do stuff, that would be great. And so I was like, sure, why not? Like the design is slowing down, so I might as well help out. Cut to 6.5 years later, I was working for them more than full time, doing basically being a full-time product rep, doing a lot of their graphics, creating all of our presentations that were being used through Western PA, West Virginia, Ohio, a little bit of Kentucky and Indiana. Yes. So our rep group was pretty large, and being a rep was really pretty nice because even though it didn't have the design aspect of it that I really, really loved, a lot of the product that I was able to get one-on-one information on and being able to work with the manufacturers and learn so much more about the ins and outs of furniture, especially. Furniture, fabric, and glass. Those were kind of the three things. And learning all the specifics of each of the different types of industries, whether that be hospitality, hospitals and healthcare to, we really didn't do much residential, a lot of corporate, things like that. So it was a really, really cool company, especially because it was a multi-line rep group company. So at one point we had about 22 to 23 lines that were all very specific in what they did. So, and each company was kind of vetted to be, they had their own specialty. There's a lot of crossover, especially in the commercial and residential world of furniture. And everybody makes the same interpretation of things. They just might do it a little different so that they can beat out their competition, basically. So one of my favorite companies was Skyline Glass, which they're more of an architectural glass company. And they do both, you know, etching, deeper texture, digital printing, all of that sort of stuff for both interior and exterior glass. So I got to work on some pretty sweet projects, and just knowing, again, the ins and outs of all of the details, which for Skyline was my company that I loved so much. And Skyline was a great interpretation going in as a rep to talk not only to designers, but also to get architects to pay attention. Because as a rep, many times when it comes to architects, they don't really care as much about the furniture or the decoration that goes on the interiors. Their focus is the structure. There are some architects who love it, but a lot of the older architects, especially in Pennsylvania, they aren't as interested because they have so much else that they need to worry about. So getting architects to actually take an interest in you as a rep is really good, and they love glass. Also Carnegie Fabrics. So Carnegie Fabrics is kind of, they're an upper echelon of fabric companies, commercial fabric companies. They do residential as well, but for the most part, their bread and butter are large scale corporate accounts for the most part, and international accounts as well, but they do all of it. And then also Zerel. If any of you aren't familiar with Zerel, you should, because it's the coolest fabric ever. So coolest material, because you can use it. Typically it was used as a wall covering, but now you can use it as a fabric, as different partition wall type images, things, that's an even better word, and also acoustically as well. So it has it exceeds 1 million double rubs, it's inherently antimicrobial, it's made from sugarcane, it's wonderful. It's just, I still remember all of that spiel because I had to say that 1 million times over the past 6.5 years. So tons of really, really cool options, and a lot with acoustics as well. So also during that time, I was still doing other projects, which I'm always very clear whenever I've worked for specific companies that, you know, I am sometimes hired out by either designers or independent, and it's never to compete. It's usually to assist with something that they're doing, which I was always very clear about that. Thankfully, while working for Dan Binford and Associates, I really, up until like the past 2 years, I was actually not on their specific payroll. I was still independently paid, and still just as an independent, even though I was full-time working for them. So this was actually a project. So one of our lines was called Carson, and Carson's makes furniture primarily for the hospitality industry. So this was a project where Carson's, I actually had to pick up the rep from Columbus, Ohio, and drive her into Pittsburgh, because we would do that. We would tag team whenever national sales reps would come into town. So I had to pick her up, and on the way back, we had like a 3-hour drive together, and she's lovely. But was starting to talk about, when we get to Pittsburgh, we have to check out the embassy suites because some of their furniture came in and it was damaged when it was taken off the truck. And I was like, oh, what happened to the furniture? And she was like, well, some of the upholstery, the corner ripped off. So now we have to get a quote from an upholsterer. And I was like, hey, I can do upholstery. I would love to, quote it if you want, depending on the size of it. We'll see. Like, I would be more than happy to give you an option. But also too, if you want to go with someone else, I know a bunch of other upholsterers who are incredible. So thankfully I got the job, which was awesome. It was literally only 2 backs of 2 sofas, which if any of you have ever upholstered before, sofa backs, or basically the back of an upholstered piece of furniture is it's the last piece, and it's the hardest piece to actually upholster because it's very technical, especially with a larger pattern like this. To pattern match it is tricky. So as you can see from these images, whenever it was taken off of the truck, it was damaged on just the corner. And no one would really ever see this, but that's a hole. So I had to fully strip off the back. Thankfully, I was able to do this at the hotel, which was wonderful. Strip off the back and then completely pattern match and then reupholster the back. And so I had to do two sofa backs, and I had to just replace a little bit on an ottoman, which was pretty awesome. So again, because I was very open and my schedule was very unique as a product rep, it also opened up a whole slew of opportunities that I had always wanted to do, which was drag. Before starting to work for Dan Binford and Associates, I was probably about like a year and a half into just starting to do drag. So throughout my time as an independent rep, I was doing more and more shows, and as if I didn't have enough work to do, I was doing shows because I loved it. Drag was basically my go-to to be creative, because as a rep, the creativity doesn't come from repping. You can be very creative in certain ways, but also too in other ways, that's not what you're being paid for. You're being paid to create relationships and sell products. Those are your 2 biggest things. So this was my creative outlet, was drag and performance. So this coming September, I think it'll be 9 years that I'll have been doing drag. And drag, honestly, it incorporates all of the different, this is all my bearded drag. It incorporates all of the different things that I have accumulated over the years, which basically I always say, I'm pretty much an upholstered couch, like a moving upholstered couch, because I'm literally creating foam hips and a butt and out of upholstery foam. Also my painting abilities and graphic design that I've learned in school for promoting myself and doing a lot of different things. I've also been hired by different companies over the years. I was actually the first drag queen at the Children's Museum of Pittsburgh. The Children's Museum of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania is in the top 5 children's museums across the nation. And I was gleeful to be the first drag queen to do a story time. And I was also asked to give a speech at the Urban Village Church, which is in Chicago, which our other brother and sister-in-law and 2 nephews live in Chicago. And so I gave a speech there, and then I also did a story time with their community out there, which was really, really fun. I've also been hired by different corporate companies, especially throughout this time period, to do a lot of virtual talks and conversations, whether that be motivational speaking or also doing a lot of corporate drag bingos and things like that. So it's been a whirlwind. This might get a little loud, I think, on the next clip. Hold on. Oh, maybe it's not that loud. So this is, that's me. Hold on, it's almost done. So this is, oh my God. So this is at the Oaks Theater in Oakmont, Pennsylvania, which is not too far away from Pittsburgh. It's literally, it's in the Pittsburgh realm, but they call it Oakmont. It's a old movie theater from, I think, like it's early 1900s that they basically restored, and they started to do drag bingos, which is all hosted by me, and then I hire the other queens, but I do all of the graphics, all of the visuals on the screen behind us, and making all the videos and everything like that that we perform in front of, which is pretty awesome. And again, just incorporates all of the design that I've done. So then at the end of July 2020, I was released from Dan Binford and Associates because of the way of the world, basically. So at the end of July, it was unfortunate, but it was also kind of a blessing in disguise, because they had to let me go mainly just because of, obviously, you know, in the repping world, and with the way that COVID has affected pretty much everybody's way of life, they just couldn't afford me basically anymore, which whatever. So right after that, that was pretty much the first time I've ever been let go from a job, even though they still talk about bringing me back. But they still would like to have me back at some point in time. We'll see what happens with that. But because I was let go, it was a push that I needed to realize that, you know, I can do a lot of independent work for myself that comes in. And I just was like, you know what, let's not jump into another job, and let's just do independent work and continue to do that. So because of that, I started to accumulate a couple of projects, and some upholstery projects, some design projects. Things were coming in, and I was trying to get my groove with that. So literally about 2 weeks after I was let go from Dan Binford and Associates, I was called by Design Star, and it was a process. Actually, at the beginning of 2020 was when they started the vetting process of trying to find their contestants. So 2 weeks after I was let go, I knew that this would end up happening, just because everything was happening in order in a pretty nice way. So once I was let go, then I was scrambling to get projects. I was getting projects. This is great. And then 2 weeks later, they're like, shut down your entire life because we're flying you out to LA for about a month and a half. And so that's what I did. And so I had to put a lot of projects on hold. I was actually the only contestant who was an independent designer who wasn't fully established yet as an independent designer. And I was the only contestant on unemployment because I needed it at the time. So it was a fascinating time. I pushed all my projects back to the beginning of December, was out there for about a month and a half, and met a ton of awesome people, including basically all of the contestants, and Lauren Mack and Allison and Jonathan Adler. La de da. I do love Jonathan Adler's what he creates and all that he has created for the design community. On a personal level, I think we would get along if it wasn't during a competition. Let's just put it that way. But I learned a ton. Oh, this is just the beginning. We don't have to watch that. I learned a ton about myself and about the design process that I hadn't figured out yet as an independent designer. And so most of my projects, I'm not proud of, of the designs that I created in the project. I am proud of this chair because I did reupholster that chair in an hour and a half. And I was the only one to use a sewing machine throughout the entire competition. I was the only one to fully upholster a chair and not just staple things to say, oh, I upholstered this. Mine was amazing. So I stand by that chair. That is the only thing I stood by that first project. They also did want me to be Alora as well. So this was my second project, which I did like my second project a little bit more. I got much more comfortable being there and knowing what we could and couldn't do, what we could source from, all of that. So it was a fun project. And then the third project was planes, trains, and automobiles. And I was paired with Justin, and we got the plane. And that was my downfall because even though we designed it together fully, and I think I did a little bit more in the design, but that's neither here nor there. I was ready to go at that point, so I was excited to be the next one knocked off. But had a great time and learned a ton, and then I was brought back into the semifinales and the finales too, which was really cool. So that is pretty much the end of my overall presentation portion. And now I'm basically just getting back, well, now I'm fully engrossed with all of my different projects that I'm working on now. But for me, I really do love any type of project that comes my way. I'm not somebody who just likes to just do interior design. I prefer to encompass everything under the title of designer, because I consider my drag to be a whole process of design for me, how I create things, how I sew things, all of that, my color scheming, the drawings that I do for that, and all the projects that I have going as an independent designer. Currently, I'm working on a kitchen project, a full house renovation, a huge, obnoxiously huge home. I'm hired as a painting consultant for that, but it's growing daily with them, which is awesome. And also doing upholstery work as well. So for me, it's kind of an all-encompassing fit. I just love doing anything and everything. And at the end of the day, again, I am just a hustler. Like, I'll take whatever project comes my way for the most part, if someone can afford me to do their project. I am 100% on board. So that's just a little bit. I'm sure you're all exhausted now, but
Tony, that was a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. I know, I mean, I learned way more than I knew, even in hearing about things. It's great. I know Emma probably has some questions, but I'm gonna just start off with what does it mean to hustle? And I know you talked about that. In the pursuit of a creative career, is it timing, self-promotion, a willingness to take opportunities, all of the above?
Pretty much all of the above, and staying open to, first of all, not burning any bridges, because all of the people that I worked for previous to being a rep, I then, as a rep, I was still working with them on a lot of projects. So as a rep, I was so involved. That's another big thing, is staying really, really involved so that people know you. So even though as a rep, a lot of times I felt a disconnect between me and design a lot of times, I still loved it because of the fact that I was very much a face of design, and so many people throughout the community knew me even more. I would also use, sometimes I would have a drag show on like a Thursday night. And a lot of times our design events were on Thursday evenings as well, like happy hour type thing. So many times I would go to those events in full drag, which if any of you do drag, it's a great way. I am not the biggest fan of networking events, but if you're in full drag or if you stand out in some particular way, I could just walk into, and many times I would walk into the door, everyone would come to me. I wouldn't have to go anywhere. And I would just hand out business cards basically, which was so much easier. And it draws a lot of attention to you, but also for me, it was my way of professing to the design community that you are a creative entity, and you don't have to follow visually how you dress, how you look to be a quote unquote designer. There's certain looks and feels of how a designer is supposed to look and address themselves. But at the end of the day, you have to realize that you are you, and being an individual is very, very important to your own creative process. I've seen so many creative people who have worked in corporate world, in the corporate world for years, and I can just tell that they're exhausted because they don't have that creative outlet. So finding a spot that works best for you, even if you are stuck in a job that isn't the most creative, on the back end, like really pushing yourself to do the creative things that just inspire you as a person is so important to just maintain a healthy and happy and creative life. So
Tony,
I don't even
we have
know
some
what your
other-
question was, if I even answered it.
No, I mean, I think that definitely all encompassed. Yeah. Emma's got some questions for you.
Yeah. Hold on, we got some feedback. You good? Okay, so hi Tony. So some questions in the chat include, what is your best piece of advice for time management?
Ooh. Time management is, I'm still learning that. Time management is fascinating. There's certain times where I have had a panic attack because I just realized that I have too much happening. Sometimes the best time management sometimes is literally saying no to certain projects, or just being very honest with things that are coming up about your time on current projects. So especially as an independent designer, sometimes I get an email that could be for a huge project, or a call from someone and they have a huge project. And I've had to turn down work because I have so many currently. And I say, well, I'm not available until next month or the month after, and I'd love to be a part of this project. And if they're like, well, that's when we need it completed, unfortunately, then I can't do it. So organization is huge. Sometimes, many times, as a designer, you can explode with samples, with paperwork, with so much happening. So sometimes it's so beneficial just to take like an hour, or sometimes two, depending on how much you explode, and literally fully clean off your desk, your work area, organize everything, get it all where it needs to be, get all of the clutter out so that you can really look at what you need to do, the task at hand. Sometimes for me, it gets very confusing because I work on so many different types of projects, from very budgeted projects to very fast and expensive projects, to then also drag projects too. So my mind, I'm still learning how to grasp my mind around certain things, because I have my hand in many, I don't even know what that phrase is.
Tony, that's a good segue actually into the next question. Emma, do you mind if I read it? How has drag influenced your designs?
Drag has influenced my designs immensely. Also, product repping and doing drag have not encouraged. They've taught me so much about public speaking. Before being a product rep, I was doing drag just like a year or two before being a rep, and I could speak in front of an audience, obviously, but I'm a fairly quiet person, and so going into repping, I then had to kind of be an authority over the presentations that I was giving, to speaking to my peers and people who have been in the industry for decades, owners of huge companies, corporate companies, and speaking to all of them. So over the past 6.5 years of just doing those presentations, it has taught me so much about just being confident. There's a big difference between confidence and arrogance, and I don't find myself arrogant at all, but you do have to have realize the words that you say, are they also, just personally, are the words that you say uplifting yourself? Because if you're always kind of, even subtle words, if you're tearing yourself down, it doesn't look good to other people, and it also just doesn't build your own self-confidence up as well. So, so doing a lot of that is a lot of self-reflection. I've done a lot of that over this past year, basically. But really, really honing in onto the words that you say, how you say them, and having your own confidence in the design world. So drag overall has, because I host a lot of drag events, and I also have to put a corporate hat on whenever I am talking to larger corporations to create invoices of what is expected of me for a presentation. For tomorrow, I'm actually doing a virtual drag bingo for Slippery Rock University. So you have to talk to heads of universities, owners of larger companies. The Oaks Theater, we would always sell out for about 400 people in that theater. That was pre-COVID, obviously. So large events and things like that, my confidence had built over that, and just being able to public speak. So yeah.
Tony, we might only have, Mary, can we ask one more question? Emma had one more question for you, and then we'll wrap things up. Go ahead, Emma.
Okay. So I'm a senior, and I'm about to be stepping into industry within a month. And I know there's a lot of other seniors on here from industrial design. I guess like you have a lot of experience just in like lots of different forms of like industry for interior design and furniture and upholstery. What's a tip that you have about kind of joining the workforce, and especially with our changing times? I guess just want your input on that.
That's a very good question. I was actually on a call 2 days ago I'm like with all the universities this week, 2 days ago for Chatham University, which is another school here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So we had a whole conversation about that as well. And it's very tricky time. Every company seems to be doing different things. Some companies are just fully, some are going back to the office, some have been going to the office, but certain times, certain days. The biggest thing that I did as a junior and a senior in college was doing internships. Currently, I don't know how easy or manageable that is at the moment. And I know for certain companies, it's really hard because just going into design libraries, and many times as an intern, you're either doing, some contract documents, or working with designers, or doing a lot with the product library to do a lot of updates. Those are all really, really good things, especially with the product libraries, and knowing your reps. not just from being a rep, but also in school, I befriended and just started to learn who my reps are, because at the end of the day, the reps are going to be your best friends to get products to you, especially when you need them quickly. Don't overuse them, because if from being a rep, some emails, oh wow, I can't talk now. Some emails that I would get from certain designers, I would know before reading that email exactly that they would need a sample. It had to be in this color, look this, be all this specific thing, and they need it like this afternoon. That's not going to happen. So being really good and upfront with reps and knowing reps, because of the fact that reps see all of the different offices throughout town. They also talk to all the designers, all the architects, all the owners of companies. Sometimes owners of companies will ask reps if they know of a certain designer, like, what's your opinion about this person? So it's a very much relationship-based community. And that's kind of with any job, but especially in the design world, many times, especially nowadays, you can go from one company to the next. It's not as likely that you'll be at one company for 30, 40 years. You'll do a lot of different types of experience, and just know everybody talks, don't burn bridges, and create relationships, good relationships with other designers, with architects, with product reps, and work with people, not with the mentality that they work for you specifically.
Cool. Tony, what a wonderful talk. Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here as well. I think actually a ton of that was really useful to go back and review. We did have some other questions, and I wonder if maybe we could compile those or send them off to you, maybe to respond to those students as well. Yeah, thank you, Mary and Melissa as well, and Emma for your help. So.
Also, too, feel free to follow me on Instagram and Facebook.
There you go.
If you more than welcome to share my email too. If anybody ever has any questions, I check my email regularly. So don't ever hesitate. And also too, if you're ever looking to move to Pittsburgh and have questions about different design firms, I don't know as many of the New York firms, but I know some into like Buffalo, not all the way up into the Rochester area. But if you have questions, I do know other reps who their territory was all of New York as well, especially Western New York. So some of the reps that you might even know, I probably do know as well. So yeah.
That's awesome. Tony, thank you so much. That's wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Virtual claps. There we go.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.